44 in operations on Friday. That was the number we cited to you earlier this afternoon. Now, according to this ICE spokesperson, they were conducting 4 federal search warrants at 3 locations in central Los Angeles. That was yesterday. That, of course, led to a multitude of protests heavily concentrated around the federal building in downtown LA. We were covering that for you here on KCAL News going back to last night. Our Tom Waite made a note of tear gas, pepper spray, that sort of thing getting up into the air, and things escalating to quite a degree when folks down there thought that people were being allegedly detained in the federal building. Things quieted down as we got to the overnight hours, 11, midnight, just a little bit, though folks were still hanging around. And that, of course, has led to more clashes today, to the point where the LA County Sheriff's Department made a note that another protest had started in Paramount after it appeared that federal law enforcement officers were conducting another operation. That was around 12:40, 12:42 in the afternoon, eventually led to the sheriff having a press conference later in the afternoon. That's when we first came on the air with you a few hours ago, giving you those live looks from Paramount, where things were sort of not to the intense degree live that we were showing you. But if we can, we'll bring you up that video now, because that's what ties into this factor that we're talking about at this moment, which was the U.S. Marshal Service bus getting face-to-face with the protesters. We'll get to that in just a second as you take again that live look on your left side of your screen and video from earlier, as well as U.S. Customs and Border Patrol vehicle, one particular vehicle, getting into it with protesters as well, or rather better described as protesters throwing things at that vehicle. Let's pull up that video. I'll quiet down for a second so you can listen to the natural sound of it, because that certainly speaks a little bit better to what we're describing in just a moment. And there you can hear it, just how dramatic the sound is, and speaks to the moment of the situation, where you have protesters coming up directly against that bus, almost trying to push it back. The honking going back and forth between the bus and the yells from people earlier, and then the pops of that tear gas and other non-lethals that were being put into that moment. Back out here live in KCAL, because that was in Paramount earlier. Now we're over into Compton, just nearby. That car still on fire in the center of that road. And there you see on the right side of your screen from our crew on the ground, it looks like SWAT is making its way in there as well, and firefighters are making their way at least a little bit closer to the area as well. Just trying to take a look here as they seem to be inching forward a little bit, at least maybe getting some organizing themselves just a touch. But once again, very fluid situation right now here on the intersection of Alondra and Atlantic in Compton, just in front of that Dale's Donuts. There you see officers, law enforcement getting some things out of the back of the truck. You see the shields there getting situated in front of their vehicle as well. And then there's 2 fire trucks you see just behind there. Also notice traffic trying to make its way ever so slightly down the right side of your screen very briefly here. It's just a lot going on. And it's been, you know, it's been an up and down and ebb and flow throughout protests all throughout the afternoon, even going back to yesterday. As we keep an eye on this, obviously we'll have the live photo for you there on the right side of your screen from our cameras, and then KCAL on the left side of your screen. You put 2 and 2 together, you can have you can see what's going on sort of from different perspectives. But I want to go back to that afternoon press conference that Sheriff Robert Luna had earlier, where he made a mention that there were as many as 400 people gathered for protest, which led the department to declare unlawful assembly. And you see officers there, you see them moving forward. It looks like sheriff's deputies moving forward with their gear, and fire trucks getting up to the burning vehicle, where the fire is still raging on high. Just a touch there in the middle of the intersection. Notice traffic still coming through, and trying to keep an eye. It doesn't seem like a lot of protesters getting closer to that. Earlier we were seeing motorbikes and other vehicles of that nature sort of zooming around that car that was on fire. So let's see if crews are working to put out the flames right now. Have to assume that is what they are going for. But as we maintain that, I'll go back to the comments from Sheriff Luna that as many as 400 people gathered for these protests, which led the department to declare an unlawful assembly and look to everyone that was there to disperse peacefully without any violence. He also made a mention that non-lethal munitions were being fired by federal agents prior to deputies arriving there. On that note, let's check back in. It's been about 10 minutes since we first checked in with KCAL News reporter Zach Boetto, who's down there live at the scene. Zach, from your ground point of view, it looks like officers there almost, I mean, they're loaded on there. What are you seeing?
Yeah, Gio, this is, I would say, a full-fledged battle right now between protesters and the Sheriff's Department. While the LA County the LA County Fire Department tries to put out this car fire at the intersection of Alondra and Atlantic, the Sheriff's Department is bringing in backup to try to make sure that we're getting pepper balls shot at us. We're getting pepper balls shot at us right now. Some guys behind us are throwing tiles. So protesters are trying to impede in the fire department's efforts to put this fire out. Oh, they're shooting right at us, Gio.
No, go ahead, Zach. If you need to take a step away for a second, we can always check back in with you a little bit later on if you need time to gather yourself. And that's Zach Boetto down there live. I mean, that just really paints you a perspective as to what's going on right now, because you can see, you see the smoke coming from the vehicle there as fire crews put out the flames of that car. But Zach making a mention that they're throwing pepper balls and things are coming directly into their vantage point and everything else. So, pardon me, we just want to make sure that they're safe as we check back in a little bit later on. This is live from SkyCal. You see sheriff's deputies there. They're shooting what seems to be pepper balls or some other form of non-lethal munitions, and that ties directly back into what the sheriff was saying earlier, that they were being fired by federal agents prior to deputies' arrival. But things certainly escalated to a point where it looks like these sheriff's deputies are firing into the crowd of protesters that, according to Zach, were just trying to impede, at least to a certain degree, some of the firefighting efforts on that vehicle. So once again, this is in Compton. This is right in the corner of Alondra and Atlantic in Compton, right in front of that Dale's Donuts. It is the contrast, it is the escalation of what we've been talking about throughout the afternoon, where we've been keeping an eye on protests across the area. First it was Paramount, now inching over here to Compton. We get zoomed in closer here. These are some of the other sheriff's deputies huddled around a couple of vehicles here, looking like they're discussing either tactical plans or something else. But fire crews there extinguishing the flames on that car that was on fire in the center of that intersection. There's another line of sheriff's deputies, and these are the ones here that we were looking at shooting off what seemed to be pepper balls, pepper spray of some sort, any other non-lethals toward the crowd. This wider view gives you a better look. Again, the right side of your screen is our live view from Zach and Anna. Zach, I want to check back in with you. How's it going? Did you get a better vantage point away from all the craziness in front of you?
Yeah, Gio, we have security guards who are with us trying to help as best as they can, but people are kind of running up from all angles and grabbing rocks and throwing whatever they can find at sheriff's deputies here at the intersection of Alondra and Atlantic here in Compton. You can see now the sheriff's department going in front of the fire department to try to protect the fire engine that's here on scene, putting out that car fire that we were showing you guys within the last 30 minutes here. This is all really kicked off in the last hour. With protesters and authorities have been clashing for a while, but then the sheriff's department decided to back up off of Atlantic here, and at that point, people started to shoot more fireworks out at the sheriff's department, and then we had people coming into the intersection doing donuts, peeling out, and shooting fireworks. At that point, this Kia, this white Kia in the middle of the intersection caught fire. Not sure if the firework went into the Kia or how it caught fire, but all of a sudden it was engulfed in flames. And now you can see the Sheriff's Department is here. They've been shooting pepper balls at protesters. We got people arguing on the street because there's cars that are stopped in the middle of the street who are going the wrong way on the road. So it's pretty much mayhem here at the intersection of Alondra and Atlantic in Compton. And again, Gio, as you mentioned, this all started this morning across the freeway in Paramount at the Home Depot, where some of these protesters believe an ICE raid was taking place this morning.
Zach, the other thing, I'll let you go here for just a second. I want to provide some of that more context because you kicked it off well in that moment about how this all started with protests against ICE raids that were happening yesterday in the Los Angeles area that included, as we previously mentioned, the Westlake District, downtown LA, and South LA. And then there was belief that there was one happening today in the Paramount area. We're going to confirm that for you. But what we can confirm, because this has come from multiple Trump administration officials and federal officials as well, that includes, I'll start off with the U.S. Attorney Bill Escalation, who said in a post on today, in fact, that they were taking, or rather that there were raids happening as scheduled, going through LA over the weekend. So safe to presume that that is going to continue, at least according to them. Now, another post that I should bring up and mention, Secretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, also making a post earlier today. As you take a look at that car fire from earlier, that is the car that just got put out by fire crews. That's on the right side of your screen, the live photo there. You see sheriff's deputies on the left side of your screen, both from KCAL. Kristi Noem saying, quote, that protesters will not stop or, quote, slow down ICE, adding, if you lay a hand on a law enforcement officer, you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Those are sentiments that have been echoed not just by Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, but Attorney General Pam Bondi, U.S. Attorney Bill Escalation, and FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino. So this is something that is not just local here, of course, but stretching back up to the Trump administration, and something that they have planned as well. This is earlier footage that we are showing you of that car fire, where you see a number of protesters on motorbikes doing donuts around said car, taking photos, taking videos, waving flags all around. Up until just a few minutes ago, we were seeing fire crews put out the flames on that on that vehicle. Fire trucks were doing that and fire crews were doing that, all as sheriff's deputies were trying to get a handle, it seems, on protesters, throwing pepper balls and other matters toward them to try and calm things down. So right now, things, I don't want to describe them as dying down. That would probably be the wrong way to describe it. It's better to contextualize it in the sense of what we've been doing all day today, as well as going back to last night, where there are ebbs and flows and ups and downs in the sense of these protests. You even saw it in that earlier video just now, the compare and contrast from live footage from KCAL and earlier when that car was on fire. Right now, it looks like things are sort of taking a breath for a moment. That includes sheriff's deputies there just on this particular corner, but they're all over the place here in Compton on the corner of Alondra and Atlantic. And right now, things have quieted down just a hair. Again, this is that video from earlier of that Kia, looks like, as Zach described it, being lit on fire. Now, we don't know how exactly that fire started, but that's been the centerpiece of this scene that we've been keeping an eye on so far in Compton. Left side, that wire view, you notice all the sheriff's deputies' vehicles lined up on one part of the intersection. You have 2 fire engines, a couple more sheriff's deputies on the bottom of your screen as well as on the top of your screen. And notice how there is also some traffic. I mean, you see this giant truck here taking some goods, presumably for a grocery store. Northgate Market says there on the side, trying to get in and out. And that's not the only vehicle that is trying to make it through this area. So these protests against ICE raids continue. If you're just joining us here as we approach the quarter mark of the 5 o'clock hour on this Saturday evening, we are keeping an eye on protests continuing against ICE raids here in Southern California. This particular live scene that you're looking at right now is in Compton, Working our way backwards, this is one of many scenes that we've been keeping an eye on going back to yesterday. Earlier this afternoon, when we first broke in to give you some breaking news, around the 2 o'clock hour, we were keeping an eye on Paramount, not too far from this location, where there was a presumed ice raid somewhere in the area. We're working to confirm exactly if and when that did happen, but we did see a number of protesters as well as a number of law enforcement vehicles and personnel hanging around that area and establishing a bit of a skirmish line, and protesters going directly up to it and exchanging words and one another. Now, in that moment, when we first broke in, things were on a bit of a downswing, calmer compared to earlier this afternoon and into the late morning hours in Paramount, we were seeing videos and queuing up moments of things like protesters going directly against a U.S. Marshals Service bus or throwing things at U.S. Customs and Border Protection vehicles. That was just earlier this morning. Now, taking a further step backward to provide you more context. We're in Compton now, we were in Paramount earlier, and this of course all stretches to yesterday. Once again, this is video right now you're seeing live on the left side of your screen in Compton, and then the video from earlier, it's in the same exact spot. So let's listen to the nat sound because that's important, the natural sound coming from this video, to better paint you a picture of some of the things that were going on. Again, that was from earlier in the Paramount area, protesters going head-to-head with a U.S. Marshals Service bus and at one point throwing things at a U.S. Customs Border Patrol vehicle as well. So again, this all started as from yesterday after multiple ice raids were occurring across the city. On that note, let's get back out to KCAL News reporter Zach Boetto, who's in Compton right now. I know, Zach, it's been chaotic even just for today to get down to certain areas because of how much traffic might be impeded, how much protesters might be getting in the way. Just a few minutes ago, in case people are just joining us, you were seeing sheriff's deputies shooting pepper balls, is it what you said, at protesters as well? I paint the picture for those of us at home watching as to what you're seeing from the ground right now in Compton.
Gio, we're getting the first look at this charred vehicle in the intersection of Alondra and Atlantic now. The LA County Fire Department just pulled away after extinguishing that car fire, which was burning for the last half hour. The LA County Sheriff's deputies showed up to help protect the fire department and in their efforts to put that car fire out, and now there are sheriff's deputies, as you can see, standing in the intersection with riot shields, standing firm there. And then on the other side of the intersection, you can also see a bunch of sheriff's deputy vehicles also here in backup. A pretty chaotic scene out here. We're at the Arco gas station across the street, and I mean, that car fire that we saw earlier, it was just engulfed in flames. There were fireworks going back and forth, pepper balls being shot, as you mentioned, Gio, and then that car pulled into the intersection and just caught fire. That's when things really started to ramp up here. You talked about it possibly calming down or getting a breath in the action. It's really ebbs and flows. It's been ebbing and flowing all day. We've seen very intense moments when protesters are right in the faces of sheriff's deputies, and then we've seen them back off and calm down. We've seen this car fire start up, fireworks go back and forth, go crazy, and the fire department came, the things started to calm down again. We have, again, those sheriff's deputies at the intersection standing firm, but there are a lot of motorcycles and dirt bikes in the area, and again, with the ebbs and flows that have been happening all day, and it being calm at the moment now, any minute now, it could escalate again. So here's what we're seeing. Sheriff's deputies are now walking backwards through the Alondra Atlantic intersection here in Compton. It looks like they're starting to retreat. In the distance there, you can see a lot of Mexican flags being waved. a Salvadorian flag also being waved, but the deputies now beginning to back up here out of the intersection now that this car fire has been extinguished. Still hundreds of protesters here on scene. Hard to see them from where we are right now because there's a lot of cars in this gas station to our left. There's a lot of cars in front of us, but there are still hundreds of protesters here ready to seemingly clash with authorities here on this Saturday afternoon in Compton. Gio?
Before I let you go, I want to ask you one more question here because obviously you're seeing things from the perspective on the ground there right next to that gas station. I'm counterbalancing everything that you're saying with the view from SkyCal overhead. And I guess my question to you is that with the protesters that are there, it kind of looks from our vantage point here that, at least right now, a lot of them are just kind of standing around, taking videos, taking photos. I mean, I also heard the motorbikes in the background there as you were talking as well. I mean, what's the general sense you're getting from just looking at the number of folks that are down there? That they are gearing up for at least another round of getting up close and personal, or that things are kind of like, we'll just kind of stand around here at least for now?
Well, it's very fluid here on the ground. I would say the majority of the people who are here to watch what's happening. But there is a small group of people who are on dirt bikes or running with masks covering their faces and then throwing things into the authorities. And but again, majority of the people that are here are watching. A lot of them who are just watching that we've talked to don't agree with what ICE is doing, what the federal agents are doing. They're coming here and they're trying to pick people up and detain them. A lot of the people who are here are Los Angeles residents, and they just don't agree with what the federal agents are doing in this mission that they're executing here in Los Angeles. Now, again, the majority of the people are not participating in the violence, but there is a small group of people that continue to run around, pick up rocks, throw rocks, shoot fireworks, and cause damage, essentially. We saw people even overnight tagging everything up, spray painting a bunch of stuff. So really doing what they can to disrupt the norm. You can see right now a quad, an ATV coming into the picture here, coming through the intersection, a mini bike, a motorcycle, people with flags out their windows. There's a Mexican flag there. So, just a lot of action here in Compton as a result of what the protesters are saying was this alleged ICE raid at the Home Depot here in Paramount, just across the freeway from where we're standing.
Zach, we were making a note, or I was trying to get a perspective. We both here in studio and then in the booth as well were noticing some sort of leftover pink on the ground near the intersection. We were wondering if that was tear gas or anything else from earlier. I know you might not have an answer. It's perfectly okay if we still don't actually know that, but I was just wanting to ask, because you were on the ground, perhaps you got a closer look at things compared to what we're seeing here.
The only thing that I can confirm that's been shot out by the officers is pepper balls, because they were shooting them over here in our vicinity when there was a gentleman who was masked up. He came over here, grabbed some rocks and started throwing them from where we are, and then they had to shoot pepper balls in our direction. However, there are a lot of protesters shooting fireworks off, and these aren't just your run-of-the-mill state legal fireworks, safe and sane. These are not safe and sane fireworks that are spinning on the ground. These are not sparklers. These are M80s. These are big fireworks that they're throwing 20 to 40 yards away and are essentially exploding, and if close enough, could rock your eardrum pretty good. So with those fireworks going off, I'm thinking the pink residue you're seeing may be from those fireworks.
Got it. Zach Oda, thank you so much. We'll check back in here shortly with you. But for now, we'll keep an eye on this situation here from SkyCal. Once again, the corner of Atlantic and Alondra in Compton, right in front of that Dale's Donuts. The middle of your screen there, you see that burnt out vehicle. That vehicle was on fire earlier before fire crews came in the last 20 minutes or so and put it out. So we'll maintain our eye on this, and I'll catch you up shortly on everything that's happening in case you're coming up a few minutes late with us on what's going on, this breaking news situation, very fluid situation going on right now in Compton and across Southern California, going back since yesterday. Once again, this is a live view from KCAL on the left side of your screen, the burnt-out car in the center of that intersection. On the right side is a different view from the ground from Zach and his photographer Anna on the scene there. A number of people gathered around this intersection and around this area, keeping an eye and watching what's going on right now with LA Sheriff's Department deputies, and the number of them, that's the video from earlier, where you can see a number of Mexican flags in the background and that vehicle fully engulfed before crews got to the scene. On the left side is that number of sheriff's deputies lined up. Some of them have riot shields. Oh, actually the ones you're seeing on your screen right now have riot shields. We saw them get out a little bit earlier. To Zach's point, we saw a few others shooting pepper balls toward protesters and folks that were there in the area as well. This is just one piece of a grander thing that we're keeping an eye on, a number of protests against ICE raids in Southern California. And right now, as Zach mentioned, as we've mentioned throughout the course of the afternoon and this early evening, is that things are incredibly fluid, lots of ups and downs, lots of ebbs and flows. Right now, we are in one of those downswings, so to speak, where it's still obviously tense. You can't have a situation with this much law enforcement and this many people and not think it's tense. But right now, nothing to the degree of what we were seeing earlier with direct confrontations against buses, like U.S. Marshal Service buses, against Border Patrol vehicles, against other officers and law enforcement, face-to-face from one end to another. And overall, we're just kind of maintaining this. This is a bit of a holding pattern that we're in right now, that we've caught ourselves in throughout the course of the evening and throughout the course of the last coming up on 24 hours. So as we approach the 5:30 mark here on this Saturday evening for you, we're going to give you a recap as to what's going on, because there are a lot of different threads that are happening right now, and we're doing this as we watch to see if anything's going to change with these with sheriff's deputies that are on the scene right now, because there's a number of vehicles and a number of deputies there ready to go at any given moment, and we've seen a myriad of things happen with protesters in these scenes, not just here in Compton, but earlier in Paramount and earlier across Southern California as well. So right now, let's go ahead and give you a moment to catch up on everything that's been going on with these protests. Obviously, this started going back to yesterday after a number of ICE-conducted raids in the Westlake District, downtown LA, South LA. That led to a number of protests last night in downtown and elsewhere. Stretch that into today as well, where this morning and early afternoon, there were protests in the Paramount area, and those direct confrontations with a number of law enforcement vehicles, a number of law enforcement officers, as well as federal agents as well. Stretch that into now, where we're breaking on the air for you at this moment. Things have moved on from Paramount over into the Compton area, where a car minutes ago was on fire in the middle of this intersection in Compton on Alondra and Atlantic, right in front of the Dale's Donuts, and we saw sheriff's deputies shooting pepper spray, or pepper balls rather, at protesters and others in the area. So a lot going on right now as we keep an eye on this, and don't you worry, we're going to have our crews on the field for you, and we'll have the news starting in just a half hour to catch you up on everything. So in the meantime, stay with us on air and online on KCALnews.com, and we'll break back in with more details later tonight.